Hey, everybody, welcome. Here we are. I am grateful that you are here to be talking about gratitude. And I do believe there is a right way to practice gratitude, and I'll talk about it in terms of its evil twin, which I believe is entitlement and how that works against us in regards to gratitude. But I also want to talk about empathy and how that fits. And believe it or not, there are effective and ineffective ways to demonstrate empathy, and I want to talk about those as well. And all of these have research that sort of back them up, why they are important. And we hear a lot about gratitude. I think it's so important for us to find ways to demonstrate gratitude and to practice gratitude. Um, so what I wanted to talk about first is what are some of the benefits that we can find with practicing gratitude. First off, from a physical standpoint, we know that in practicing gratitude, a couple things can happen in terms of physiologically. It's been proven to increase or improve immune system. It's been demonstrated to reduce heart rates and lower blood pressures. There was an interesting study not that long ago that looked at uh, mindful gratitude and just practicing it for 5 minutes a day. And in that study, what they found was, again, they actually looked at it in two different ways. They had a resentment group, believe it or not, and they had a gratitude group. And they asked each group to focus on one sort of being resentful and the other being grateful. And again, when the 5 minutes were over and they measured individuals, they found, again, lowered heart rate, lowered blood pressure in the group that practices gratitude. And I think it says a couple things. One, the power of gratitude, but I think also what it suggests is how little time it actually takes for us to practice gratitude. I think as well we can look at gratitude from the impact that it has on us from a mental aspect. Is that we know that gratitude can reduce stress. Well, if it reduces stress, we also know the benefits of stress reduction is that oftentimes we're able to problem solve better when we have limited stress. And I think that's really important for us to think about because when we are in stressful situations, right, the most important thing that we need is to be able to navigate how do we get out of this situation that we're in or be able to deal with it. And I go back to a time right as COVID hit and everything shut down. And from my business perspective, everything that I was doing at that point was brick and mortar. I was out meeting with clients and traveling around and doing group work, and all of that stuff basically stopped at once. And I remember I was pretty stressed out there for a couple of weeks, wondering, and especially when you were hearing, people talk about how public speaking was going to go away, and people wouldn't go back into offices to do work like that anymore. Fortunately, that's not the case. But I had to then practice what I talk about so often is, and I was always good about being grateful for the things that go well, but really I had to focus on how can I take this situation and be grateful for this? How can I be grateful for the challenge that I'm being faced with right now in terms of my business being sort of turned upside down? And what that allowed me to do again was to slow things down and to really take a different perspective on things. I then went and hired a company out of California to take a lot of the work that I had put together, that I was going into companies and doing work with them in terms of building teams and building individuals, leadership, and put it into a course, into a 24 module course that I then went and repurposed and went back out to organizations that I was working with and saying, here's an opportunity for us to continue doing the work that we're doing, as well as reach out to new companies and saying, here's a 24 module course that I have that lasts 3 to 6 months. That what we can do is on a weekly basis, they can be learning the lessons I would have taught them when we're in there, but we can also do the coaching and the group coaching through Zoom. And it allowed me to kickstart my business again. And had it not been, I think, for me taking that approach of looking at how can I be grateful for the struggle, the challenge that I'm being faced with right now, I think it would have prolonged my ability or inability to sort of navigate something further. So it's the next one. I think also we know from studies is what practicing gratitude allows us to do is to become more empathetic and I think more kind toward other people. And I have said for a long time that when I experience people that I think are unkind toward others, my belief in this is that it stems from them being unhappy with who they are. That being unkind to other people is the root cause of that, is that we're unhappy with who we are ourselves. And if I'm not in a place where I can practice gratitude, then certainly that is the case. Sean Aker is certainly well known for his work in happiness, and you can Google. He did a 21-day happiness challenge, which is one of the things that I reference in the book, The Leadership Bridge, that I wrote a little over a year ago, and something that I reference in the Power Journal that I created that you can download for free off of my website if you're interested. But if you're afraid that somehow I'm going to track you down if you give me your email, which I won't, I promise you. But if you do, you can certainly Google the work that's being done by Sean Aker, and he talks about gratitude and the importance of that. In this 21-day happiness challenge, if I have this right, what he talked about was there were 5 activities that individuals had to do. Well, one of them was finding a time to be grateful every day. 3 things that they had to be grateful for. And to me, as I remember this, was unique about this is that they had to think of 3 different things every day. So for the first 2 to 3 days, right, I can think of 6 things, 9 things. Even if I'm not in a good place, I can probably force myself to think of 3 to 9 things that I'm grateful for. To me, the real challenge comes when we get to day 15 out of 21, and now I've had to think of 45 different things that I'm grateful for. To me, that's the power of this, though, that when we have to force ourselves to think of that many things that we're grateful for, what does that naturally probably do to those things that are stressful or are upsetting in our lives? We're like, wait a minute, let me refocus here and think, even though this is a difficult time that I'm going through, there are so many different things that I am grateful for. So that was part one of this. Well, another activity that people were asked to do was that at the end of the day or within a 24-hour period, they had to write down 2 to 3 sentences about what went well during the last 24 hours. And I think that is so powerful. So in the work that I do and I talk about in the Power Journal is that I talk about practicing gratitude as bookends. So for me, I start my day out from a standpoint of gratitude. I write down in a journal that just so you don't think it's right here. Every single morning, I write in this journal about 3 things that I'm grateful for. You can see, right here. And what I do is when I write in this journal, I write down 3 things that I'm grateful for. Are they different every morning? Nope, they're not. But what I do try and do is mix them up in terms of being grateful for simple things. Could be, spring starting if that was the time of year, or, having a cup of coffee this morning and just appreciating a roof over my house or head or whatever that might be. I'm grateful for those things. I will try and, pepper in there again, being grateful for maybe challenges that I'm going through, or, a conversation that didn't go well. And what can I learn from that? What I also do in this journal is after I'm done with that is I write my intentions for the day. What do I want to accomplish for today? And not, a checklist, but basically who do I want to be today? Well, how do I want to show up in the world today? And that sets my morning in terms of starting my day. It's the mental part of going to the gym for me. And then what I do is end my day in the same place of when I go to bed, when I lay in bed. I don't write this down anymore, but what I do is I think about what went well today. What am I most happy about in terms of happening today? And I think that is really important from a standpoint of mindset is what does it do? It sets my day in bookends. Started out in a great place and I've ended, even if the day didn't go as well as I wanted to, I have focused before I go to bed on what went well during the day. And I think that is vitally important. And I can tell you my own experience. I know on those days that I don't, or when I'm really, something didn't really go well, if I miss an opportunity to do that, my sleep probably gets impacted as well from that, because what do? I'm thinking like, I got to deal with this tomorrow, or this conversation I wish I could have had differently today. But if I can think about what did go well, what am I grateful for? It allows me an opportunity to refocus and to know that tomorrow's going to come. And if I really didn't like it, then I have an opportunity to change that. So those are the gratitude pieces, right? They're vitally important. Again, the research that backs up why. Something I've thought about a lot more lately is this thing called entitlement. And I do think it's the evil twin to gratitude in any aspect of our life. Being entitled, feeling as though the relationship that I'm in, we've been married for 20 years now, like, you know, I don't have to do the work anymore, right? To me, that's entitlement. To think about being in a position of a leadership position and feeling entitled that I've earned the right to be here, I think it goes against gratitude. And I think it has a negative impact on us. When we come from a place of entitlement, I think it closes our minds in regards to us being able to be learners, which as leaders, whether it's leading at home or in the community or in a work setting, that we need to continue to be learners. Those are the greatest leaders in any aspect of their lives, personally as well, are ones I believe that continue to find ways to learn, to grow. I had this conversation yesterday, a large project that I'm involved in right now, and in one of the groups working with yesterday, I started out with a quote saying, "To do and not to do is not yet to know, or to know and not to do is not yet to know." And I believe that when we say we know it, but we don't do it, we really don't know it yet. To me, that's a piece of entitlement. And what's the impact of that has? Well, we know again, there's research around this that when people feel as though they're around people that act as though they're entitled, from a standpoint of teamwork, right? There's less group collaboration when that happens. There's less trust in that other individual when that happens, right? There's probably less problem solving or the ability to be more efficient when I'm in a position of entitlement. The impact or the negative impact of entitlement is huge, and I think it's important for us as individuals when we practice gratitude. It it almost to me is almost a vaccine that keeps entitlement away. You can't be grateful and be entitled at the same time. So to practice gratitude, what we know that does is so many different ways that we can do it. Not only being grateful for what I have, what I'm grateful for, but think about this also from the standpoint of being grateful um, for the role that I'm able to have, right? Being grateful for the ability to manage this group or to run this company. When I come from that place of gratitude, the ability for me to connect with other people becomes so much greater because I don't look at them as um, they work for me. Like I feel like I've got a responsibility to them. I do have a responsibility to them. And I talk about this often in leadership and management development is that you have such a responsibility for anybody that reports to you. It is incredible the responsibility that you have for that individual. And what I mean by that is that your treatment of them often impacts every other aspect of their lives. So if I have people that I'm not treating well in a work situation, that goes home with them. That their level of stress might be greater. I can remember two managers that I had when I was back in the biotech industry. And in days before I would have to travel with each of these individuals, it was an extremely stressful situation because their behaviors, their performance was I felt was just so poor and we didn't align in regards to our values. And I think of the impact that that had, that I would have headaches 2 days before I was gonna travel with this individual. I'm thinking of just having to sit in a car with this person, and the behaviors that were gonna be demonstrated during that point. Now, again, I look back at that now, I'm grateful for those situations because if it wasn't for that, I would it would have been much more difficult for me to leave an industry that was very comfortable, financially and in many other ways. Um, but those behaviors really forced me to do what I really feel like I was meant to do, and it's this kind of work. Um, so that's it around gratitude, right? Whether it's holding a gratitude journal, but also it could be exhibiting gratitude by doing things for other people. Volunteering is another way that we can demonstrate gratitude or practice gratitude, right? Um, so the other component of this is empathy, right? Empathy is so important. We hear so much about it. What I find fascinating about empathy, and there's a study that I will reference often, and it was from 2007, but it looks at a positive and a negative way almost to practice gratitude. And it talks about self perspective versus other perspective. And what happens when in this study that they did, they looked at images. Participants had to look at certain images of people in pain. And they had to do one of two things. In one group, they had to imagine that they were that person in pain. And the other, they had to just imagine, you know, from that person's perspective. Not that I'm the one that's experiencing the pain, but what it would be like to be them. What's it like for them? And what they found was in the group that took the personal perspective, that over time it weighed on them too much. As much as we talk about empathy and needing to demonstrate it, when we take on too much of another person's burden, then it can actually work against us. That especially as leaders, if we do this, um, being empathetic to other people and where they are, but if I'm always taking that person's perspective, I'm imagining I'm them, then it might prevent me from making some decisions that need to be made that are very difficult, but I have a very difficult time doing it because I attach myself too much to what is going on, which can create burnout. And I see this probably more in healthcare that this can happen too, if we attach too much. What was fascinating about this is that when participants were told that the pain that somebody was going through was actually going to benefit them, that there was less stress that that individual felt. And again, when I think about this from a standpoint of leadership and development, I think that's an important perspective that we can take, is that if we can truly look at the intent of some difficult decisions we've made or are going to make and think about it from that person's perspective, understanding the impact that this is going to have, but knowing that in the long run, that hopefully this is stuff that needs to be done to benefit either the individual or the organization long term, it helps us hopefully to be able to balance that, the positive energy of empathy rather than the draining empathy energy that we might have when we fixate too much on what if this was me? What if I was the one going through this? And I think that's an important sort of balance. So again, for anybody that's interested, I'm happy to provide any resources in regards to the studies or research that I've presented here. Again, you can certainly go to my website if you're interested. There's the Power Journal there that actually has citations of research on each of these 5 activities that can provide greater sense of well-being and happiness. And again, I think as leaders, if we're in a better place ourselves, then we're able to be in a better place to be there for other people, and we show up in a better place. So gratitude, to recap, there are so many ways and so many benefits to gratitude, right? Physically, mentally, right? From a standpoint of empathy, and the downside or the alter ego or the evil twin of gratitude really is entitlement. Anytime that you feel like you're in a place that you deserve it, that you know that you have it in a way like you just have the right to be here, then think about the damage that that's causing. That's the opposite of gratitude. And then lastly, we talk about empathy. Empathy is so important, but just to remember that to think less about imagining that I'm the one that's going through this and more about trying to imagine what you're seeing is going on. And also then to be looking at the decisions that you're going to be making. That are these really in the benefit of that other person? And if they are, then that to me provides the drive and the responsibility for us to make difficult decisions. As leaders, that's what we have to do. So I hope you found this valuable and helpful. Please reach out to me if you have questions. Again, you want any additional research that I talk about, I'm happy to do that. I love talking about this, and there's always an opportunity for us to really to rise above our best.